Hello and welcome to the second session in our first webinar about the new RIVAGE PM series. My name's Carl Christmas and...
Good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you for watching. My name is Andy Cooper.
And also in the studio today, we've got Tim and Atsushi working the cameras and the vision mixer. So if anything goes wrong today, even if I forget my lines, we can blame it all on Tim. So why are we here? Well, of course, as you know, we recently announced the new RIVAGE PM series of products that added to the family range. And we're very glad to be able to present them over a series of webinars here over the next 5 weeks. I see today I've been looking through the list of people. We've got a lot of guests from North America and from Latin America, some names I recognize: Gabrielle, Chip, Jose, Randy, so welcome to you all. There's a lot of people here from Europe and Russia, and I even saw that there's Jonathan from India and Sachai from Thailand. So congratulations to Sachai for staying up so late, and congratulations to those from California for getting up so early. Before I start, Andy, did you cut your hair?
Oh, stop it. Yeah, we are all sporting homemade haircuts here. So
Did you use something like this?
Where did they come from?
Perhaps you should have done. Anyway,
that could have done a better job, couldn't it? Yeah.
Enough frivolity. What are we covering today in this?
So yeah, let's quickly show some PowerPoint so you don't have to look at our homemade haircuts too much. Yeah, today we are going through, well, firstly, we'll start with what is RIVAGE. As we've recently expanded the family, we'll take a look at what's new. Then we'll run through the key concepts of RIVAGE. Firstly, we'll take a look at sound quality, what makes it sound so amazing. Then we'll look at operability, what makes it so easy and intuitive to use. And then we'll look at reliability, what makes it work. Then we'll review the full lineup and we'll tell you a little bit about the key features to each of the consoles and DSPs in the family and the I/O racks. And then we'll finish with questions from you. So please type your questions. Find the Q&A section of Teams and type away, and we'll deal with as many questions as we can later on. Though, if we don't cover every specific detail that you want us to today, do not fear. We'll be back to tell you more. Over the next 4 weeks, there'll be more webinars to give you more information about the marvelous RIVAGE PM family. So, next week, we're going to take a closer look at the new systems. So we'll give you a guided tour of the consoles, DSP engines, and all the facilities that are included. Then a week after that, on the 10th of June, we'll be back to give you some tips for system design, what you can achieve with RIVAGE PM systems, including Yamaha's own twin-lane networking and, of course, Audinate's Dante networking, when we should use one or the other or both in combination. Then, following that, on Wednesday the 17th of June, our colleagues from the USA will be hosting you, and they'll be telling us about what makes the system so easy to use. They'll give you a lot of shortcuts, tips, and show you a few of the facilities on the consoles. And then on the 24th of June, they will be back to tell you about what makes it sound so good. So they'll be exploring the hybrid mic preamps with Silk. They'll be looking at all the various plug-in options that we have within the systems. So stick with us and find out a little bit more each week over the coming month. But for today, we'll hand back to Carl, yes?
Yes.
And we'll have a little overview of the RIVAGE mixing systems.
Thank you. So, as you already know, Yamaha launched the PM10 and PM7, and they've been developing the systems over the last 2 or 3 years. We, of course, know that a lot of people have been using the CL series and QL series, but there's been a big jump up between the CL series up to the RIVAGE PM10 and PM7. So Yamaha, of course, wanted to democratize or allow other engineers all around the world to be able to use the RIVAGE systems and benefit from the RIVAGE sound. So we introduced the PM3 and the PM5. Along with the same announcement, we also mentioned the announcement of the RIVAGE PM version 4 firmware. And in that firmware, we've included new reverb plugins that Andy will cover later on. We have new monitor mix capability. Sorry, I can't speak. It's too late in the day. Greater network flexibility. Then we have enhanced workflow. Again, Andy will cover some of that during this webinar, and it will continue through the other ones. We have a RIVAGE PM7 upgrade, which I'll mention in a minute. We have an expanded DSP range. But first, the RIVAGE PM7 upgrade. Now, as of version 4, it will be available with 144 inputs and 36 matrix outputs. And for existing users, that will be a free of charge upgrade. So we now have a full range from PM3, 5, 7, and 10 of control surfaces that will allow what we would like to call an all-embracing ecosystem. Along with the announcement of these new control surfaces, we of course announced the new DSP. And without the DSP engines, there is no mixing network system. The first one we mentioned was the new DSP RX, and that is capable of handling 120 inputs, 48 mix buses, 24 matrices, and 384 plugins, which Andy will cover a little bit more in detail later on. Then we had the new DSP RX EX, the expanded version. This, on the other hand, can handle up to 288 inputs, 72 mix buses, 36 matrices, and 512 plugins. Now, if you start by investing in the DSP RX and want to later expand it, you can do using these DEK DSP RX expansion boards. But I have to mention that the expansion boards can only be fitted by a registered service center. If you're new to the RIVAGE PM series and you're coming from the CL/QL world, it's worth mentioning and reminding people about the twin lane network, which can handle up to 400 channels at 96 kilohertz, 32-bit with full redundancy. It has 4,000 input connections and 1,500 hybrid mic preamps with Silk. And if you add the Dante network, which you can include at the same time, you can add an additional 1,500 mic preamps. I don't know if I can afford the number of microphones to make that type of system, but
but you can if you've got them already.
Yeah. As well as all of that, of course, we have the very extensive range of plugins which come as standard with all the RIVAGE PM control surfaces and DSP. These are made using Yamaha's virtual circuit modeling as well as the Rupert Neve Designs programming. All of the control surfaces can be set up, show files, online, offline, using the console editor, which is available for Windows or Mac. And it's worth mentioning that it can be a useful additional screen whilst you're mixing live. As I mentioned briefly before, CL/QL used to, or still do, benefit from having a monitor mix where musicians or performers on stage can take feeds from the console and give themselves their own personal mix, in-ears or wedge, whatever they choose. Now this monitor mix functionality is also available for the PM RIVAGE range right the way through. No matter which RIVAGE system you're working on, the show files are compatible right the way throughout the range. So the idea behind this is that if you go out with one particular model and you're changing no matter where your location is or your venue or your budget, you can very easily swap show files from one to the other using our show file our software. Likewise, if you're coming from CL and QL series, you can also use our file software to exchange files into the RIVAGE PM series. So a brief overview of the new family. We have now 5 different scales of control surface, the PM3, the PM5, the PM7, and the 2 versions of the PM10. We also have the 2 new DSP engines and all the varieties of I/O rack, which again, we will cover in more detail later on. So finally, we have a true ecosystem which can scale from small to medium-sized concerts right the way through up to large-scale events, festivals, auditoria, whatever.
Fabulous. Thank you, Carl.
No problem.
Yeah, and it's worth mentioning, isn't it, about the DSP R10, which we didn't include in that picture. So the DSP R10 is the DSP engine that all PM10 systems have used so far. And that DSP also gets upgraded with version 4. So it has a whole range of new features, and it still continues to be valid and used with PM10 systems, though future PM10 systems will be able to benefit from the extra channels that are available in the DSP RX EX. So if you already have a DSP R10, that can be used with the PM5 and the PM3 consoles. So new DSP engines can be used with existing consoles. Old DSP engines can be used with new consoles. There's full compatibility across the range. But the new DSP engines will be basically replacing the DSP R10 from this time going forwards. Have I explained that clearly enough, Carl?
I think so. I understood it, but then I've heard you say that before.
Yeah, okay. If you've got any questions, please type them and we'll try and explain clearly for you a little bit later. But the point is, you choose your DSP engine according to how many channels you need to mix. You choose your console according to what available space or budget you have and what style of operating you want, if you prefer multi-touch screens or if you prefer hands-on controls with buttons and encoders.
Or if you're a single operator or dual operator.
Or yeah, if you need two people working at once. And then you choose your I/O depending on your channel count needs, your requirements for networking, and whether you need to link with a whole range of other systems like using a Dante network, for example. So you have choices. And we are here to help you to decide. So over the next few weeks, we will explain more about Twin Lane and Dante, what is suitable for what situations. So we'll help you understand what is best for your own needs. Shall I continue, Carl? With what have we got next? We are going to look at the 3 key concepts behind the Rivage ecosystem. Firstly, we will start where every sound engineer gets their passion for, great sound. So I'm sure you know that Yamaha makes a lot of musical instruments. So when we need them to be amplified or need them to be broadcast for many people to hear, we want to make sure they still sound their best. So we've got to make sure our live sound equipment is treating the sound of our instruments as best as they can. So we hugely rely on great sound quality. So I'll explain a little bit about how we achieve that. Then I'll also let you know a few things that make our console so intuitive to use and fast and easy to get to work on. And then lastly, we'll talk a little about what makes Yamaha gear so reliable. So let's start with the sound. And let's go full screen so you don't have to see my lockdown locks anymore. Let's look at Rupert Neve instead. Here, so starting with the beginning of the signal chain, we have the mic preamps. And with Twin Lane, we can use the hybrid mic preamps that feature silk. And you get a texture control and you get a color control, blue or red. Now, what silk does is it recreates the sound of analog transformers in vintage mic preamp circuits. And for different character of sound, you can choose red or blue that add different types of harmonics to the sound in a very warm and musical way. So texture increases the amount of harmonics, and you can switch the transformer emulation on or off. So it basically does to the sound what everyone has been longing for since digital mixers were invented, to bring that analog character and warmth back into the digital world. That's what we get with the hybrid mic preamps. So that's where we start with the sound. So thank you to Rupert Neve Designs for welcoming Yamaha to work with them. Another fruit of that work are these plugins, which you are free to insert on any input or output channel. And we have the Vintage series, with compressors and EQs based on the 70s and the 1980s circuits that Rupert Neve Designs have worked on. And we have the more up-to-date Portico series with an EQ, a compressor, and the fabulous primary source enhancer, the 5045, which reduces background noise and reduces the chance of feedback when you have stopped talking or playing your instrument or singing. Then we must mention Dan Dugan Sound Design before we move on, because this is a must-have tool in broadcasting or conferencing or anywhere you have multiple speech microphones. So even in this room, Carl, we have Dan Dugan working, don't we?
We do have Dan Dugan working. In fact, talking of haircuts, Dan Dugan posted on his Facebook page, I think about a week ago, he cut his own hair because he was fed up of looking like Boris Johnson.
Yeah, but I mean, there are other leaders around the world who I'd prefer not to look like than Boris.
Oh, let's not get into politics.
I shall not mention any more names.
No, but yes, Dan Dugan we are using here today. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah. So that's wonderful, and we can use this across up to 64 channels now in all the Rivage systems. Also available in all Rivage systems is the Dance Dynamic Noise Suppressor. This was recently introduced and has been well loved and has amazed engineers around the world at how well this learns the background noise and removes it from your sound, whether it's air conditioning noise or moving lights or crowds in a sports stadium, or even it can help to remove cymbal noise from tom and snare drum microphones. It's pretty amazing. So that is available in all Rivage systems. And so is these plugins from Eventide. So you probably already know the Ultra Harmonizer H3000 Live is found in the PM7 and PM10 systems, but it's also there in PM3 and PM5 systems now. And throughout the Rivage range, with version 4, we introduced the SP2016 Reverb, which is based on the classic analog, no, not analog, it was a digital, one of the early digital devices, but a rack mount device from Eventide. And back in the 1980s, they made SP2016, and then they made an updated unit in recent years. This has the algorithms from both the classic one and the updated one, and it's got lots of amazing presets from a lot of well-known engineers. So that is included in version 4, and we are very excited to have that to bring such high-quality reverbs into the systems.
I think it's worth mentioning you've also done a little vlog on that reverb that
That's
people
right.
can watch.
I think it's not published yet, but I have made a special video about that. I think next Wednesday it gets published, so we'll be able to see more about it. But if you go to the Eventide website, they have demos where you can listen to some of the sounds, and even some of the engineers who are involved in making the presets have made some videos about it. You know, one of the cool things about this is the little position control you can see on the bottom row there. That's quite a unique thing for this reverb. It's like moving the microphone from close to the sound source to further back in the room, so it increases the amount of reflections you get.
I think the cool thing is the label that looks like a 1970s Japanese watch.
Yeah, the red L, not...
I won't say which brand.
Are they LEDs? Yeah, the LED, red LED lights, yeah. Yeah, it's classic in many ways, isn't it?
Moving swiftly on.
Yeah, and just to confirm, that does come into the DSP R10 as well as the new DSP engines.
Great.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on because we have a lot to talk about in this hour, don't we? So all those plugins, and we have delay compensation for them all. No matter how many you use on how many channels, we compensate for them, so you can make sure all of your outputs are coherent and in time. And you can choose to compensate for input channel inserts, for output buses for their routing, and for output inserts if you want to as well. So it makes things like parallel compression nice and easy. That helps you. And also the fact that everything runs at 96 kilohertz as standard and 32-bit networking. So all the audio that goes from your I/O racks to your DSP engine, from your DSP engine to your console, is all 32-bit 96 kilohertz. Unless you, of course, choose it to be a lower sample rate. But that keeps you with the optimum sound quality at all times in all your Rivage systems. So that's a story about sound quality. Shall we move right on and talk about
I think
the user interface?
I want to make a big thing about sound quality, because for the engineers who have been lucky enough to experience the Rivage PM range, one of the main things they mention is the sound. And they've been lucky enough to be able to operate PM10s or PM7s. I even had somebody say to one of our colleagues that the sound from the Rivage was 3D as opposed to two-dimensional on previous consoles they'd used. And they wish they had been able to move up to the Rivage if it were only for channel count. So we've kind of ticked the channel count box and made the whole system much more accessible to a whole variety of different end users. So it's a big thing, the sound.
Yeah, agreed. It's exactly what people have been waiting for in live mixing systems, isn't it?
Cool.
The sound quality you crave for in a recording studio and spend lots of money for, you can now take out on the road with you with your live sound system or broadcast mobile broadcast system.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt.
You're most welcome, Carl. Back to the user interface. Let's go back to the PowerPoint slides. I'll show you some tasty pictures of the products. Here we see the PM5 and the PM3, and they follow a familiar user interface. We continue to use central logic, which is where you have the faders running up into the screens, like as if virtual analog channel strips. Let's say you can see on the screen in the center there 12 channels lining with the faders. That's central logic. And you get layer buttons next to the faders to choose which group of channels you want to see at a time. Then we use the selected channel concept. You select a channel and you see all its functions on the screen and on the encoders and buttons by the screen. So very familiar concepts. You already know how to use it. Then here's a bird's eye view of a PM5. And you can see right by every fader you have a level meter. And that can be mono or stereo. And at the top of the level meter, you see gain reduction meters. And see how close the screens are as well to the arm. Armrest to the screens is just, well, an arm's length. You can operate it all day without any tiredness. And the screens, 3 screens, are all multi-touch. Not just multi-touch, but capacitive, extra bright multi-touch. Nice and sensitive, easy to use all day long. Of course, on the PM7 and the PM10, which perhaps you have already seen and worked on, these have a wonderful large selected channel area where you have an encoder and a button for pretty much every function. On the left side, you can see analog gain and digital gain with silk texture in between. Then in the center, you see the full EQ section and filters and the dynamics. And then on the right, you see 12 mix send controls. So fully hands-on, large selected channels, so you can keep working while keeping your eyes on the stage. Fingers on the buttons, eyes on the stage. So that helps you to keep a quick, fast operation. Now, another key point about Rivage consoles from the PM5 upwards is they support 2 operators at the same time. So whenever you have more than 2 screens, you can split the console into zones, 2 or 3 zones. Each zone can have its own fader layers, its own shortcuts, its own selected channel, and its own Q bus. So multiple operators can work at the same time.
So typical example would be sound designer with sound operator in theater, or a sound coordinator in a large broadcast situation, something like that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Or for when there's a lot of people on stage, then maybe you've got one operator for the orchestra and another operator for the rock band who are perhaps performing together. or one operator for a bunch of singers and one operator for a bunch of musicians. Yeah. Or one operator for inputs, one for outputs. I've known to happen as well, perhaps when there's a lot of submixing going on. You can choose how you work. That's the key beautiful thing.
Cool.
Now let's run through a bunch of functions that perhaps you are already familiar with from the PM7 and the PM10, but we want to highlight that they are also available on the PM5 and the PM3 as standard. The first one is theatre mode, where we have 4 EQs and dynamics available for every channel, and on each scene you choose which bank of dynamics and EQs you're going to use. So this is perfect in the situation where you have one actor playing multiple roles in a show, or one actor in multiple costumes. Perhaps one time they need to wear a hat and you have to change their EQ. Another time perhaps they're stuck in a box and they have to speak and need a different EQ.
Andy, I know you've been on the theatre quite a lot and you've performed. How many times have you needed to get into a box?
Just one, thank you.
I'm sure the audience loved it.
It can happen. It can. Yeah, I was probably wearing a dress at the time as well.
I don't want to know.
Enough of that story. Anyway, you have an actor library in theatre mode as well. So if you have multiple actors playing the same role, perhaps on different nights, then each actor can have their own library, and you recall the actor library to the channel according to which performer is live that night. And you have DCA presets, which is like a macro or shortcut for your DCA programming. You know, if you have a lot of channels you need to assign to different DCAs in different scene memories, this will help you do it faster.
How do you do that? Can you explain a little bit more for me?
Oh.
The DCA presets.
Yeah. I'd love to show you on the screen, but I'm not in theatre mode at the moment.
Oh, well, maybe later on you can explain.
Yeah.
I'll remind you.
But basically, you assign loads of channels to a DCA as normal, and then you just copy that assignment into a DCA preset, and you've got, how many is like 30 or 40 DCA presets. So you copy them to the preset, and then when you create a new scene with a new set of DCAs, then you choose a DCA and you choose which preset of assignments to add to that DCA.
So it could be strings, or it could be male choir, or whatever your DCA set is.
That's right.
Quickly
male voices, female voices, strings. Yeah. So in each scene, you might have different DCA programming that will help you to assign the channels quickly. And furthermore, it can automatically turn the channels on once you've assigned them as well.
Cool.
So extra fast. It will save you time in your show programming. Other features that are included across the whole Rivage range include this set of broadcasting features. There are mix minus shortcuts on the screen, so hold shift and choose which channel you want to take out of a bus. We've got 5.1 surround panning and monitoring and busing for dual languages. We do down mixing as well, and we've got fader start and tally controls. So a whole host of broadcasting features. Of course, there's plugins that are very useful in broadcasting as well, like the Dance and the Dugan Auto Mixer, and the 369 Bus Comp as well, which is well known in broadcasting. For live sound engineers, we have virtual soundcheck mode and live recording available throughout the Rivage range. You can record 144 channels at 96 kilohertz 32-bit using a Dante interface card and a one-button push to switch to virtual soundcheck mode. Then for monitor engineers, we have something very useful. We have a monitoring matrix. So you can easily set up a sort of communications queue bus net matrix in the console rather than having to use an external console. So if you've got technicians and a backstage crew who need to keep communication with each other, they need to listen to the musicians' mixes in their ears, and as an engineer, you still need to hear what you're queuing on the console at the same time. You can do that all with the Rivage systems. So you can do it all from the console right in front of you.
Right.
So all those functions on all the consoles. that keeps it intuitive. Shall we take a look at a little video you've prepared in advance for us, Carl?
From Japan?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. When I was over in Japan about a few weeks ago, I was lucky enough to interview and film a lot of the design and technical engineers who are behind the Rivage series. And it's amazing the number of different types of engineering and design that goes on. You have the conceptual design, you have the DSP programming to achieve that, you've then got the testing to make sure that they've done their job right, and then of course you've got to create the control surface that intuitively allows an engineer to be able to do what he does best, and that's mix sound. It not only has to be looking good and inviting, but it also has to have practical elements and sort of some really key features. So this is an interview with Masafumi Ito, who is the aesthetic and also control interface designer, not only for the Rivage, but also the previous CL system. And it's a minute long, and it talks about some of the things that he thinks about when he starts to design a control surface.
私がデジタルミキサーをデザインする上で大事だと思っていることは2つあります。1つ目はエンジニアが機能を理解しやすいということです。2つ目は素早く操作できることです。それを実現する上でデザイン的に工夫していることがあります。それは物理フェーダーとタッチ液晶の連続性です。それを実現する上で形や色、グラフィックデザインを工夫しています。リバージュ PM シリーズや CL シリーズに搭載されているフェーダーはスポーツカーのバケットシートをイメージしてデザインしました。サウンドエンジニアがどんな角度やどんな状態で操作しても使いやすくなっています。また側面をえぐっていることでどのレベルを指しているかも分かりやすくなっています。さらには未来的なフォルムがサウンドエンジニアの気分を高揚させ、より良いパフォーマンスを発揮させることにつながると信じています。リバージュ PM5 のパネルデザインには2つ工夫があります。1つ目はフェーダーノブとタッチ LCD の最下段にあるチャンネルネーム表示がより近接して見えるように2段折りの形状になっています。もう一つはパネルが近づいていることによって誰にとっても素早く操作できるユニバーサルデザインになっています。リバージュ PM シリーズのエンコーダーノブに搭載されているホースシューリングは、ノブがパネルのどのような位置にレイアウトされても、またエンジニアがどのような立ち位置から見ても、12時の位置の LED が非常に見やすくなっています。リバージュ PM シリーズの木製アームレストは、美しく高級感のある外観を提供しています。また機能面においても真夏の炎天下の野外ライブや寒い地域のイベントにおいて暑くなりすぎたり冷たくなりすぎたりすることなくサウンドエンジニアがいつも通りの安定したオペレーションをできるようになっています。リバージュ PM シリーズの外観の特徴になっているシャークフィンシルエットについてですが、2つの機能があります。1つ目はフロントパネルの形状に関係しています。物理フェーダーとタッチ LCD の連続性を生み出すために滑らかに屈曲するパネルの断面形状を作っています。そこから来ています。2つ目は後ろ側の角を削り取ることによって運搬時の衝突ダメージを軽減しています。
So there you see, it's not just a case of aesthetic or physical design. It's a blend of different thought processes. Does it look good? Is it functional? So that's what I found very, very interesting.
It's great that he takes the comfort of the engineer into mind as well, isn't it? With the wooden armrest. Of course, we all love the look of the wooden armrest, but it really has practical implications as well. You don't get burned, you don't get frozen. Nice. And of course, the wooden armrest is on all the Rivage consoles, just a different color for the PM10 compared to the others in the range. Shall we talk a little bit about reliability now? What helps to make Yamaha systems so reliable and trustworthy? Well, Carl has been to the factory, actually so have I, many years ago. I think I visited when PM5Ds were under construction. But yeah, still, even now in the Yamaha factory in Japan, where the consoles get made, they use a cell production, where one person has responsibility for the full manufacture or the full assembly of each console. So in the morning, they see their job list and they see what they're going to make that day, whether it's a PM5 console or a 7 or a 10 or a 3. Then they grab all of the components and they build it, and they have responsibility for it. And that keeps everyone working at a high level of skill and responsibility as well. So we believe that really helps to bring reliable products to our customers.
Yes, it's not working on a kind of conventional conveyor belt. It's a sense
No.
of achievement and a sense of identity with the product you're making.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, indeed. And every component within the hardware, whether you can see it or whether it's hidden, is very carefully chosen for long life and reliability. They have months, years even of testing. So all the components, screens, little resistors, capacitors, screws, and so on. Next, the multi-touch screens, they're not just pretty, they're not just a gimmick. They are chosen to be reliable with a long life, to work well under bright sunlight and to work well in the dark corners of a theatre or a broadcast studio as well. And they are placed within easy reach, particularly on the PM5, where there are 3 of them. They are brought close to you. It's from your elbow to your fingertip is pretty much the distance from the armrest to the screen. So you can relax and work all day long at the same time. So that is wonderful to actually experience and to touch. Now a few more sort of things that you really would expect in a reliable system. Every device has dual power supplies. That is because of, that's to cover any unreliability that may be occurring outside of your system with the power that gets brought to the devices. So dual power supplies on the DSP engines, on the I/O racks, and on the consoles. And there's ample cooling to go with it. There are fan speed switches, keep them cool to stay within the NC20 noise criteria, which is the kind of regulation for broadcast studios and quiet theatres, or put it to high-speed fan mode for the extra warm kind of outdoor summer events, which we hope can start happening sometime soon, hey, Carl? Also, we have full redundancy for audio connections and networking. So we see here the console network connectors where the consoles join to the DSP engines. You have 2 connections for redundancy. Of course, Dante, we know, has redundancy with the primary and the secondary network connections. And Twin Lane has full redundancy. It's a fiber optic ring with redundancy. If any cable gets cut or any connection gets broken, nothing goes wrong. Everything keeps on working, but you get just a warning message on the screen to alert you. One other great thing is this sort of traffic light system for your fiber connectivity. If you see a green indicator, then it's good and working well. If you see a red indicator, then it's too low and should be checked or replaced. If it's yellow or orange, then it's borderline and you should check, or you should clean your fibers or check for any damage. But it is still working. So that's wonderful to have on all of your twin lane components. Then, if you want to have redundancy for your DSP engine, then all the DSP engines can work in mirror mode by having an identical DSP in the same ring. If you want console redundancy, you can have 2 consoles connected to each DSP engine. So you can have well, you could use two consoles for multiple operators and have more faders, or you could use it for backup and redundancy. And also, every input channel has two patches, an A and a B patch, which you could use for redundancy. Your A patch could come from a twin lane mic preamp. Your B patch could come from a Dante mic preamp, for example. So in every part of the signal chain, you can have a backup. So that is your all-embracing ecosystem with Rivage. Shall we finish with a quick rundown again of the system?
Yep.
And I will sort of give a few unique points about each of the consoles as we go through.
And questions are firing in. So yeah, once
Yes.
you've done that last overview, we can start to go through some questions.
Yeah, type in your questions to us. We'll answer as many as we can today. So this, again, is the family of components, 5 control surfaces to choose from. Remember, the PM10 has 2 sizes, 2 DSP engines to choose from, and a whole range of I/O racks. Let's start with the PM3. So this is just about 10 centimeters wider than the CL5. So it is still pretty compact and our most lightweight console in the series. One multi-touchscreen, it's 15 inches, so it's larger than a CL5. You can see 12 channels on it at a time. So the fader banks are 12 faders per bank, 3 banks. That gives you 38 faders. But the channel strips have the same layout as the CL series, so it's going to be immediately familiar and easy to use. But you get more fader layers, you get more channels, you get more plugins. Then the PM5. Now we come up to multiple screens, and here we have 3 multi-touch screens. And you see they are brought closer to the user. So, but at the same time, we space the faders a little wider, so you can see level meters between each fader. And another key thing here is the selected channel. You can choose to link that to the right screen or the center screen, or indeed the left screen. So you can suit the operation of the console to right-handed operators or to left-handed operators, or to 2 operators. Or if octopuses had ears, perhaps they could do a fine job.
You live in a strange world.
I'm reminded of the Beatles' Abbey Road Octopus
okay.
Garden. Yes, 50 years or so, isn't it, since that? So the Rivage PM10, then let's look at next. This is the only level in the Rivage range that has 2 sizes. So actually the CSR10S, the one we see on top, is our narrowest console from a width point of view, though it is a little deeper than the CSR3, the PM3 console. But the key point about the PM10 is it's so hands-on. Above every fader, you get 2 rows of encoders, and the selected channel has an encoder and a button for everything. So you really are hands-on. That allows you to speed up your working, and you can keep working with your hands while your eyes are on the stage, checking what the performers need from you. And of course, it has dual headphone sockets and hangers. The large console has them at each end, so it's the most comfortable way to operate with 2 engineers working in tandem. Then the PM7. I've left this till last because it is a unique console because it has the DSP engine inside. So the PM3, 5 and 10 use an external DSP engine. The PM7 has it built in. That makes it the fastest to set up and get connected and start mixing. So it's the easiest console to set up. It keeps the same wonderful hands-on user interface as the PM10 with the large selected channel and 2 rows of encoders below the screens, but it makes it easier and quicker to get your system set up and connected. And remember, with version 4 now, it's upgraded to get more channels. It has increased suddenly from 120 inputs to 144 inputs. And the matrix has increased from 24 to 36 as well. So the DSP engine is inside the PM7. For all the other consoles, now we can choose from 2 sizes of DSP engine. We have the DSP RX with 120 inputs, 48 mixes, 24 matrices, and the DSP RX EX, which is expanded to 288 inputs, 72 mix buses, 36 matrices. So the DSP RX EX has 2 times the number of inputs as the original DSP R10, and it has 30% extra plug-in capability. Let's compare that to the CL5 console. If you remember, the CL5 console has a premium rack which can host 8 units or 16 16 plugins. Let's say you can insert on 16 channels in the CL premium rack. Well, the DSP RX has 384 plugin capabilities. That is 24 times the power of the CL5. So that gives you an idea of the capability. Lastly, let's remind ourselves about the I/O options. If we use twin-lane fiber optic rings, then we can use the RPIO units, which allows us to use Rupert Neve Design's Silk hybrid mic preamps. Otherwise, we can use Dante to have smaller units, more distributed units, and of course, Dante is audio over IP, so it can be integrated with existing networks. So you can choose twin lane fiber for the highest quality mic preamps, and you can choose Dante with distributed I/O compatible with regular IP networks. Or you can choose a combination of them working together. How are we doing with questions, Carl?
Yeah, questions are coming in. I was just reading through them whilst you were talking. As of course, we're going to answer as many as we can today. As Andy mentioned earlier on, we will be doing follow-up webinars that will cover a lot of the in-depth programming and networking questions that you may have, so it's worth looking up those. But Andy, do you just want to remind us about those follow-up webinars that we're doing?
Indeed, yeah. Let's take a quick look at the menu for the coming weeks. So yes, next week, Carl and I will be back to take a closer look at the RIVAGE PM systems. We'll give you guided tours of the console. We'll look at the rear panel. We'll look at the DSP capabilities, and we'll do more of a comparison between the I/O racks as well, the twin lane options and the Dante options.
Great. And for those of you who can't wait till next week to learn more, we also have a lot of material online. So we have on our website, we have a number of specification sheets, downloads, CL editor you can download and try out, and all of that information. We also have the social media pages where we post training seminars and video training, as well as many other updates. And of course, we have a whole series of training videos and other content on our Yamaha Global YouTube site. So feel free to visit those. But in the meantime, we're going to try and answer some of these questions that are coming in. Yes?
Let's do that. Yeah.
Are you sure you're ready for this? We have 21 questions. Let's see if we can get through them.
Wow. Thank you for your interest.
Okay.
Let's see what we've got.
Okay, first one, good question. Will the DSP R10 be able to be upgraded with the EX kit from Ethan?
Good question. No, it won't. Very sorry. The DSP R10 will not receive any more channels or receive more plug-in capability, though it does have the version 4 upgrade, so it does receive the SP 2016 reverb and the other new version 4 features. DSP R10 can be used with the new consoles, PM5 and PM3, as well as, of course, with the PM10, though new systems will be using either the DSP RX which of course is fewer channels but is lower cost, or the DSP RX-EX, which gives you more channels.
Also worth mentioning the TC reverb.
You were going to say TC, yeah.
Yeah.
So the one great benefit of the DSP R10, the old DSP engine with all PM10 systems so far, is that it is the only DSP engine that contains those TC electronic reverbs.
Great. Next question. Are the Rio D2 preamps and RPIO preamps the same minus the silk?
Not quite.
No.
Not quite. Similar. They are designed to be as similar as possible if silk is off. But of course, due to other design parameters within the units, so perhaps power supply or chassis design and so on, there are some small differences, though we do try to make the RIO D2 units sound as natural as possible as the RPIO units with silk switched off.
Yeah, so virtually the same, but for component reasons, we cannot say that they are the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. What is the difference between, I'm going to try and work this, A10 DSP and RSEX DSP? Do we mean DSP R10 and DSP?
Yeah, so maybe
RSEX?
the DSP engine that all PM10 systems use so far and the new DSP RX-EX, what's the difference? Well, I think perhaps we've already mentioned the DSP R10 has the TC electronic reverbs. The new DSP engines do not, as the PM7 does not either. But the DSP RX-EX brings you more input channels and more plug-in capability. 288 input channels and up to 512 plug-in instances. That's
Cool.
Pretty huge, isn't it?
Yeah, it's big enough for
Pretty
me.
huge. Yeah, I'd love to see someone who's got the time to use all of those.
Question from Mateus from Brazil. Do all Rivage PM surfaces have silk in their analog input preamps, which I'm presumably means the Omni-ins on the
Yeah, so every console has 8 analog preamps built into the console for local I/O. The PM7 and the PM10, both of those consoles have the hybrid mic preamps with silk built in. The PM5 and the PM3 have basically RIO D2 preamps built in, so you don't get silk with the PM5 or the PM3 consoles. Sorry about that, but we need to keep them affordable, don't we?
Yeah, so the only way you can get the silk is with the RPIOs.
Yes, that's right.
Got it. Next question from Nelson. Could CL5 files be used in Rivage? Well, we covered that earlier on. Yes, you use the Yamaha's file converter, and you can take CL and QL show files and convert them into any of the Rivage consoles. Correct?
That's right, yeah.
Great.
And of course, any console file from any of the Rivage systems can be used in any of the other Rivage systems. So if you have created a file on a PM10 like a year or two back, then you can load that into PM3 systems, PM5 systems, and so on.
Question from Thierry. Hi, is Dante Direct sample rate converter functionality offered by any Rivage PM model?
Indeed. We have a I/O card option, which perhaps we'll cover next week in more detail. But there are 2 options for Dante I/O cards. One gives you 144 channels in and out, working at the same sample rate as the Rivage system. Another one has sample rate converter built in, but you can choose various modes for that. Of course, the sample rate converter itself needs to use some DSP processing so that it does have a limitation on channels. You can have 72 channels in and out simultaneously, or 144 channels out only, or 144 channels in only. So there are various modes. Though it can still work at 144 channels in and out, so long as the sample rate you convert to is actually using the same clock source, so is synchronous.
That's a very good answer.
which is actually very useful if you want to run Rivage at 96 kilohertz and you've got maybe some CL consoles running at 48 kilohertz. You could have them running in the same clock domain, so then you can sample rate convert between 96 and 48 while still being synchronous. So that's a very nice thing to do.
Great. A theatrical question here. What if an actor plays multiple characters? Do you have to duplicate that actor, or does it know what EQ to recall depending on what channel they are assigned to?
Oh yeah, that's a theater mode question. So when you are working in theater mode, each channel will give you 4 EQs, 4 compressors, 4 noise gates. Yeah, and you can program each to suit a role an actor is playing. Then in the scene memory, so in each scene you store whether you're using EQ A, B, C, or D, and whether you're using compressor A, B, C, D, for example. So in the scene memory you store which bank of EQs or compressors you're using. The curve of the EQ or the compressor gets stored in the actor library. So there are 2 places for where you store. So you recall a scene, and the scene recalls a particular bank. But if you want to edit that during a show, it remembers the editing you've done, and it temporarily stores that in the actor library, which you can choose to update at the end of a show or revert back to the previously stored version.
Thank you. When will it be shipped to India is the next question.
Yeah,
I wonder if that's Jonathan asking that question. In general, worldwide, the consoles will be shipped in different phases. The first to be shipped will be end of June, early July will be roughly the beginning, and that will be the PM5 and the DSPs. And following up that, a few weeks later, late summer, early autumn, will be the PM3. We cannot, for obvious reasons, say exactly when shipping will take place for all the stuff that's going on, but that's our target. So it should be the same in India as it is here or is in Brazil. Maybe it takes a little bit longer to get to Brazil. I don't know what the shipping times take, but that's our rough estimate.
Yeah, but yeah, everything is reasonably variable at the moment, as I'm sure you all understand.
Okay, here's a good question. We have a PM10 from 2019. Is it necessary, like a requirement, to make any upgrade about DSP or any software? So maybe someone's concerned about doing an upgrade, or is there benefits?
It's not a requirement, but you would certainly benefit from upgrading to version 4. And it's a no-cost upgrade for you, but it brings you the SP 2016 reverb from Eventide. It brings you extra new shortcuts and workflows. So it's certainly well worth your time doing the upgrade. And the upgrade process doesn't take so long, does it? You could do it a whole system within an hour. So I would highly recommend upgrading as soon as version 4 is available for you.
Okay, next one. In a complex configuration between 2 or more control surfaces and 2 or more DSP engines, can it work like a fault-tolerant mode or redundancy, sharing buses and commands by twin lane in a broadcast facility? Let's just read that once more.
Yeah.
In a complex configuration between 2 or more surfaces, 2 or more DSP engines, is there like a fault tolerance mode or redundancy where it shares buses and commands on twin lane?
Right.
So that it's
would be mirror mode.
Yes.
Yeah. So the mirror mode, which we briefly mentioned earlier, is where you have 2 DSP engines which are exactly mirroring each other. One is live and active, and the other is mirroring everything that the first one does. So if anything fails in the first DSP engine, the second one instantly takes over. And same with, you can have 2 consoles in the same ring. If one goes offline, then the other one, the other one has simultaneous control. So another thing you can do is use the editor software as a backup as well. So the computer software can be a backup for a console too, connected to the DSP engine. So you always can have some simple kind of fail-safe. Yeah, and the DSP engines, they store all the scene memories and settings inside them as well, so they are kind of a backup for all your memories too. So even when you don't have a console there, your memories are safe in the DSP engine.
Great,
I
thank
hope that
you.
helps.
Let's rush on with a few more. They're steaming in fast
Lovely.
here.
Okay.
Recommended operating temperature. I've tried to look up the recommended operating temperature, and is there a designated overheat point?
Yeah.
Can you remember?
Generally, it's between 10 and 40 degrees centigrade, isn't it? That's our general perfect operating temperature window. Outside of that range, like above 40 degrees or below 10 degrees, the first thing you notice to suffer is probably the touch screen itself.
Or the operator.
Or the operator. Yeah, the engineer themselves. No one wants to be working in above 40 or below 10. Yeah, but for storage and transportation, I think we can go higher and lower for storage, but operating, try and keep it within 10 and 40.
Yeah, I think obviously it's a sense. An answer is a sensible temperature, where the operator can survive. The desk is going to be the same, like any other piece of electrical equipment.
Indeed.
So look after the operator first, then the desk. When will the PM7 version 4 download be available? Around the same time as the shipping of the PM5 and the DSP, I would imagine.
Yeah, within days or weeks, within days or a couple of weeks, I think.
Okay. Well, watch out on social media.
Soon as possible. Yeah. Keep an eye on our Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram pages to get notifications.
Okay, I've got a question in from Gabrielle. Maybe this is Gabrielle from the US. About the Dante recording connection, is it worth mentioning you need to use a specific Dante card if you're planning to use different sample rates between the console and the recording? Otherwise, you cannot use the 96K on the console without limiting the number of channels you can record using DVS, Dante Virtual Sound Card.
Yeah. If you are using Dante Virtual Sound Card, that enables you to record onto your computer through the standard network port with no extra hardware for your computer, then that is limited to 64 channels at 48 kilohertz or 32 channels at 96 kilohertz. So that does limit your channel count. If you want to record more channels, then we recommend the PCIe card. We nickname it the Dante Accelerator card. You can plug that into a PCIe chassis or into a large tower computer, and then you can grab 128 channels at 96 kilohertz into your computer. If you want to record more than 128 channels, then you can use Nuendo's system link, and you can synchronize two computers together to do a much larger recording. But yeah, if you use we mentioned it earlier, the sample rate converter Dante card in synchronous mode, then you can handle 144 channels of recording at 48 kilohertz, even when your console is working at 96 kilohertz.
Thank you, Andy. Price point of PM3 and Rio compared to CL. We're not allowed to mention price points here. That's up to our good friends all over the world, the district managers and the sales reps. So if you know who they are, please get in contact with them for price points. If you don't know where to contact them, there are some contact areas on our website. Sorry, I can't give you an answer. How is parallel compressing on the Matrix? That's the next question.
On the Matrix, you'd normally use subgroups for parallel compression, wouldn't you? That's where you, well, in analog days, you would have some inputs, maybe drum channels. You'd send them directly to your stereo bus without compression, but then you'd group them to a stereo subgroup, and then you would heavily compress the stereo subgroup and then mix it with the stereo bus. So most of your drums then go through two paths to get to your stereo bus, once direct and once through the subgroup. Now, previously, if you did that on digital consoles, you get two different lengths of signal path, and they wouldn't entirely match up at the end, and you'd get some phasing or comb filtering problems. On Rivage, it automatically aligns that process for you. So you can do parallel compression just like you would have done on analog consoles without any concern about keeping coherency to your sound. It aligns it for you.
Yep. So a few more questions, and then we'll have to stop and grab a coffee while we answer these by typing. We mentioned when the V4 version 4 will be available, and this will also be updatable for the DSP R10.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Version 4 will come to DSP R10. Yes, the whole PM10 range. It will come to PM7 as well as of course the PM5 and 3.
Can I use a CL within a Rivage family network?
Of course, you can use a CL console on a Dante network and share RIO units with Rivage, but the CL consoles will have no control over twin lane devices. So the RPIO units cannot be controlled from CL series. They use a different control protocol unique to twin lane.
Okay, two more. Is it possible to use DSP in standalone mode without RPIOs or the control surfaces like DSP5?
That's going back a bit, isn't it? DSP5. That was the DSP engine that would work with the PM5D way back, which had mic preamps built in, if I remember correctly. 48 mic preamps. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, DSP engine by itself has no audio I/O, so you would need networking cards, and then you would need to link it with I/O units, either by Dante or by twin lane. So if you have some I/O racks and a DSP engine, you can control it all from your computer software. So your PM editor software can control every function on here. It may be a little slow from an operating point of view because you don't have your fingers on the faders or the encoders. You've got to mix everything with your mouse. But if everything is programmed and you just have to press next scene, next scene, next scene, then it can be achieved without a control surface.
Okay, I'll ask one more question, and then what we're going to do is we will close down the video and we will type the answers to the rest of the answers on here and keep the nice chilled out music going while
so if we haven't answered your question, stay online a little bit longer and we'll hopefully be able to type.
Right, last question for you, Andy. Is there a possible future where twin lane will be over a 10G Ethernet?
Nothing is planned like that, but that does raise a good question. So one advantage twin lane has over Dante is that it does have a larger capacity for delivering audio channels in and out of your device. Yeah, so the largest capacity Dante module we've got can deliver 144 channels in and out at 96 kilohertz, whereas the twin lane module can deliver 256 channels in and out at 96 kilohertz. So twin lane already has higher capacity than any Dante module can give. There is no Dante module that can handle 10 gig or more than 1 gig at the moment. Also, twin lane has lower latency than you get using Dante over audio over IP. So that's another point that makes twin lane completely irrelevant as it is right now. But I can imagine more in the future that Dante would be usable over 10 gig networks anyway. Yamaha Audio has network switches that can carry Dante through 10 gig backbones. So I guess you could more imagine that in the future there may be a 10 gig module for Dante available, and perhaps as network speeds increase, perhaps Dante can work at lower latencies in the future. But we are thinking of quite a fair bit ahead in the future. Probably further than we can faithfully imagine. So for now, if you need higher capacity in and out of your device than Dante can give, then twin lane is highly relevant for you. And of course, you don't need network switches with twin lane. You go from device to device. You make a redundant ring with your fiber.
Great, thank you. A lot of very good questions, interesting questions. We challenged Andy there on his ability to answer some of those. He'll need a lie down in a minute. Thank you again for joining us. I hope it was useful. We will try to answer the remaining questions. And don't forget, plenty of stuff on the websites. We've got the follow-up webinars from both here in the UK and from the US. We'd love to see you there. And we'd love to see you in the flesh sometime as soon as possible. So thank you and goodbye from me.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. We are broadcasting from the United Kingdom. So we've actually done this webinar already, how long ago? 7 hours, 8 hours ago? So if that time suits you, we'll be back next week, same time, in the UK morning time and in the UK late afternoon time as well. So thank you for joining us today. We'll see you again next week.